That's for RJ Bates, baby.
Yeah, dude, that was dope.
Yeah. So we were trying out the intro. Everybody, this is the weekly Investor Thrive call where we break down how to do more deals using batch leads. I got my man Nicholas Nick with me right now. What's up, Nicholas?
Not much, man. Not much. I'm living the good life over here. It is Wednesday, huh?
Dude, this week is flown by, bro.
Yeah, I
Well,
can't believe it.
it's crazy. Well, let's get right into it. So why would you watch this video? I feel like that's everybody wants to know why they should spend their time. I'm like that too. So why should you watch this video? Well, guys, if you're trying to get deals, cold calling is definitely a way. I've done several deals. Nick, I know you got Lead Mining Pros, and that's a service that helps people cold call so they don't have to do it themselves, right?
For sure.
So you can get deals cold calling. We want to let you know where you should start if you're a beginner. Because a lot of people, they dive into cold calling. They hear, maybe I should pull absentee owner list. Maybe I should just do this. And they hammer it. And maybe they see success. Maybe they don't. But we want to set you guys up for greatness. We want to set you guys up so you can succeed. So we want to talk about where in the United States, where in the world should you start cold calling if you're going to do that activity, if that's going to be your lead gen. Okay, that's going to be your marketing strategy. So here, obviously, if you don't have batch leads, get it. And Nick, let's kind of talk about Nicholas. Let's talk about what's going on when people start and what they face when they just pick a random market and they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a big problem people make is they choose what everyone else chooses. I mean, the downside of life is if we want to start there and it's our first pick, well, that probably means it's everyone else's first pick too.
Yep.
Okay. And this is where, whenever we're finding hobbies like yoga, that's great because there's a bunch of people at yoga. We got a bunch of different people we can be friends with. And
you like yoga, brother? Hot yoga is fun.
Yeah. Hot yoga. The first time I ever did hot yoga, I drank way too much the night before. I was not ready for that hot yoga. I'll tell you that. But the real estate's different. Like you wouldn't open up a burger restaurant next to a bunch of other burger restaurants, right? You just wouldn't do that.
Makes sense. Yeah,
however,
makes sense.
Yeah. However, every real estate investor in their yard isn't a big ass sign that says, "Hey, I'm a real estate investor," so you can't really tell. Now, what I've learned, the safest bet is to stay away from two things. One is something I call a celebrity city. Okay. So a celebrity city is any city that everyone knows the name of.
Ooh.
Okay. Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Chicago. Okay. If 3-year-olds know the name of these cities, you should stay away from these cities. Right?
Wow.
Okay.
That's a bold statement, brother. That's a bold statement.
It's true. It's true. And when I say stay away, let me also be clear. It's not that it doesn't work. Arguably, these are the best cities in the world if you already have a contract, right? Because there is so many buyers.
That's correct.
However, the cost of that contract is going to be through the roof. And that doesn't mean that the closed deal isn't going to outweigh it. But the real rule of thumb is this. When you're playing, so let's use Miami, for example.
Right.
Okay. Well, and the other tip, the first thing was celebrity cities. The other tip was tourist areas. Okay. So now the thing about tourist areas, and I'll go into Miami here now, is even if you're in a celebrity city and you don't want to get out of it, you got to get away from the tourism. Okay. If you're in one of these celebrity cities and you have a smaller budget, you really want to be in the least touristy place. And since you're in the most touristy city, right? So finding the coldest spot in the hottest market, if you're going to be too stubborn and not leave, that's what I totally recommend.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So we're specifically talking about if you have a marketing budget or you're cold calling or texting or you're doing any outbound. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? Even inbound too.
Yeah,
right?
But whenever you're doing lead pursuit, right? Whenever there's some type of investment on the lead strategy, and it's like, because what's happening in these markets, like one guy says, "Oh, I'm in the zip code with the most transactions." And I'm like, well, that's great. But that also means that most other people are also transacting there.
Mhm.
You know, if you do the math in reverse, right?
Right.
You know?
So unless you're like a dispo company that only dispos deals for people in those areas, then it's just gonna be a little bit more expensive to get those deals. Now you might be able to make a bigger spread, but you're saying if the person is starting out new, doesn't have a big budget, playing in those areas could get you could outspend like your budget and not be able to get a deal. Is that what you're
Absolutely.
saying?
So you know, Miami. I actually Googled it. Miami is the fifth wealthiest city in the world, not America.
Okay.
Okay, and you should know that if you're investing there, because if the math works, and it always works, that means that some of the people I'm competing with are the top 5% wealthiest in the world as well.
Mm.
And that's okay if you want to invest in Miami. But if you're showing up to Miami with $1,000 in your pocket, thinking you're going to close deals, you know
Right.
you're not going to, because your competition's minimum budget is $5,000 a month. And even
Mm.
that guy's struggling. So, you know, and so it's just understanding who you're competing against. And it's okay to end up in Miami, but
Right.
I want you to start in a place where you're going to feel successful, where you're not going to get defeated. If you're just starting out, you know, trust me, I've been in business 6 years. I'm still fragile.
Mm.
Okay, you know, and if
That's
you're just
business. That's business. Is we're always, we're always fragile. We're always growing. We're always improving. So that's why
yeah,
we
you know,
come to you guys with the truth. We come to you.
right. Yeah. You know,
Yeah,
I have one down week and I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean for the rest of my life? And it's just 1 week, bro. It's a holiday, dude.
that's it.
Relax,
That's it.
man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be okay, you know. But, you know, the fragility is true. So this advice is really mainly based on lead generation strategies and to help protect your momentum. You know, I
Appreciate
want
that.
if you when sometimes when we run into these snags, whether it's financially or skill wise, like in these markets, a lot of the other guys you're competing against, not only is their budget bigger, but their skill is stronger. You
Yeah.
know, I recommend all of my clients, you know, I own a lead gen company, so naturally, these aren't people with signed contracts looking for buyers. If they were, I'd be like, hey, you're great in these
Bro,
markets.
you want them to succeed or they don't get to keep working with you, correct?
100%. And I tell them selfishly, look, I'm going to give you advice. And the advice is the best results come from markets nobody wants to visit. Okay. And that's really where you get the most results. I've seen people get 5 leads on a $1,200 campaign in a super saturated market. And we shift the budget to Arkansas. Okay. And then they literally get 28 leads. They close a deal and everything becomes real. And it's not that Arkansas is the secret, but the number 28 is the secret because it takes leads
Yeah.
to close deals, you know?
Well, I like that you say that because when say you want to market in cities that you don't know the name of, bro, I think Little Rock is the only thing I know in Arkansas. I think that's the only city I know.
That's right.
Right. So it's the same thing. Nobody wakes up and is like, let me hit up those other cities I don't even know the name of in Arkansas,
Right.
right? Or
Yeah, very
Mississippi.
few people are even saying Little Rock, right? Let alone everywhere else, you know?
Right.
And it's like, and that's everyone else's. And I get kickback. Well, Nick, are there investors there? You know, there's no investors over there. And then I have to remind people that every home that's for rent is owned by an investor.
That's correct. They don't live there. They're
That's
investing.
right. And so are you telling me that there's no homes for rent? And the whole area, everyone owns every property they live in
Yep.
that market, really? And then they go, oh yeah, that's such a great point. And so, but I understand it doesn't seem like people would be flipping in Arkansas, but you know they do, and they are.
Of course.
You know,
That's so true. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this today, guys, is a lot of people, they hear go market, right? So they immediately just spend, money on a list, batch leads, and they skip trace and they start calling. And when they don't see success after a certain amount, they're like, this doesn't work. But that's not the case. It's just maybe you don't have the budget to play in those bigger markets when you're facing me, you're facing other people who their budgets are 10, 15, 20, 30, now 1,000 a month. Now you can still get deals. I got deals in Utah, Salt Lake, very competitive when I was new, but I was knocking doors, I was hammering phones, and it took me several leads. So you just got to weigh it. It's like, it's going to take more calls, but if you get some, the contract's probably going to be bigger. So depends what you want, but momentum, like you're saying, it is important to stay active, bro. You need, if you're just calling, getting smashed, you might want to just quit. But if you're calling, and your first deal's not that big, but at least you're having good conversations, you're talking, that might help you to see that this is real quicker.
Yeah, spending $1,000 and getting 10 leads isn't bad, However, if you're looking for some momentum, it can be like a little draining sometimes. If you didn't start with a budget of 3,000, spending $1,000 to get 10 leads is horrible. But if you're a seasoned pro and you're like, yeah, averaging $100 a lead, I had a guy call me the other day. He's in California. He says his average closed deal is costing him $17,000.
Wow. What market is he in?
He's in San Francisco.
Yeah, but the spreads are bigger, but still very
that's right.
expensive.
Well, that's exactly right.
If you can't
to
play
me, I go,
there.
oh my God. And I told him at first, I was like, look, you're going to have a hard time cold calling there. He goes, Nick, I'm spending $17,000. He goes, if you could get me a deal for just $8,000. And I'm like, well, when you put it like that,
yep,
we can definitely get you a deal at $8,000.
Yeah,
even though if I said that to any other client, they would tell me I'm a scam and they'd slam the door in my face. But this guy's like, he's talking me into being my client.
Yeah. I've talked to RJ Bates at the very beginning. We accidentally played his intro. I thought it was just a generic, but I talked to RJ the other day, and he's, through his experience of doing nationwide, same thing as you. He says, you're going to play in the West Coast, Washington's, California, Utah, or, those areas, you're going to have to spend more money to play, but the contracts are bigger. So if you get started in those areas and you don't have the money to play, just know that that's the risk. But you go in those other areas. So let's just kind of narrow it down. What are some states that no one thinks? You don't have to go over cities and dive really deep, but what are some states right now that you're like, those perform well, or that's like probably a good place to start if you're starting with lead gen?
I'll be honest, I don't really have a quick reference. What I try to do for everyone is I try to guide them to where they could be, right? So I do tell people the Midwest and any state you'd never want to visit. Like, to be 100% honest with you, if you look at a map of the 50 states and you're like, holy fuck, I forgot that was a state, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I never want to go there, right? You're like, okay, that's a good spot.
Right, 100%.
Like West Virginia, brother. I've actually gotten a lot of contracts. Those are hard to move in West Virginia, I'll tell you, at least for me.
And, there's just so many states that we totally, there's 50 of them.
Yeah.
And if someone asked you to name any, you'd probably get the 10 before you didn't know the other 40. So, it's like it's really ripe out there. And the least popular the name, the better off it is. But that's if you want to go super virtual. Mm-hmm. My biggest recommendation is you go to the nearest suburban or rural market. Okay. And then, that place is going to have a reputation. They always do. The suburban areas around the city always have the reputations. Maybe you're looking for cows. Maybe you're looking for indications in the market that, it's a little bit more rural. Okay.
Did you say cows, bro?
Cows. Yeah.
Nice.
Cows, gated fences, mm-hmm. Open land. That isn't where you want to be. That's a little too deep, but that's when you're close. Okay.
It's good advice.
Yeah. So it's like, what I recommend is when you find those areas, you find the nearest suburban area, and then you focus on that suburban area. And then that normally works extremely well.
I like that. I appreciate you giving us your knowledge, because this is what you do. You find out what's working. So there's no one better to ask than Nicholas Nick, or no one better to work with than Nicholas Nick if you want him to call, so you don't have to. So, and it works great with the strategy I teach. Painless wholesaling, painless flipping. We teach, if you're going to go to a market, find the buyers first, right? So you're not stuck, cold calling or getting leads, and you're like, oh, who do I got? You can find that out before you start doing that. It can take a couple days. It can take a week. But, once you are ready to get in lead gen, I agree 100% with you. But if your strategy is not lead gen, obviously bigger cities, there's different strategies. So
if you're a JV guy and you want to be like you mentioned earlier, if you create a little dispo system where you're like, hey, bring me all your contracts, and just so you know, that's why a lot of the coaches are in. Find out where the coaches are investing in.
Bam.
They're in these cities where it's hard as shit to get a lead. So a part of the strategy, at no fault to anyone, is let me create a bunch of lead generators that I call coaching students, and they bring me deals. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Nailed it.
I'm not knocking it, but that is their strategy. They don't want to cold call or send mail either. Instead, they're like, hey, I'll educate and I'll create an army of lead generators. I think it's brilliant, but it's about adapting to your market. That's the way they adapted.
You nailed it at 100%, bro. The strategy that I use, I don't use my students to, hey, go lead gen for me, but I do snipe other people's wholesale deals. I get on their lists. I say, hey, I got a buyer. I connect them. That's what painless flipping is. It's whether you have pocket listings, agents, wholesalers, but you wouldn't be able to do that effectively or efficiently in a town that no one knows about. There's not going to be enough people that have deals. Now, the thing is, it's kind of weird too. It's like, hey, you're in a big place. Shouldn't you be able to sell that deal? Still, sometimes people get their numbers wrong. Still, some people don't know what they're doing. So you are able to educate and help those people that have deals and help them get across the finish line. I just did a deal. Took me 3 hours to do. Wholesaler, very experienced, had a deal. Didn't really work when they sent out the blast. They sent it out too high. They're like, hey, can you just run it by somebody? I ran it by my buyer. He's like, it's a tight deal. I can pay $7,000 above what they have it under contract for. We split it $3,500 in 3 hours of work, a couple calls and texts. So that's kind of where I think a lot of people, if you're brand new, get started working with buyers and then reverse engineer that process. And then when it's time and you're like, hey, I got some money, let's go start lead gen and do it in a market where you're not going to get crushed if you don't get a deal after $1,000 or $2,000, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I think we've kind of set everybody up on the batch lead call to like know exactly what to do when you're ready for the lead gen, or if you're ready to go right now. You pull that list in the market where you obviously never want to visit, and if you have extra funds, and you want someone to call, Nicholas Nick's got your back at Lead Mining Pros.
And I can help guide you. I had this client who used us, and she started in Seattle. Right. Again, Seattle, everyone knows it. Pearl Jam's from there. It's like everyone knows the name Seattle. And then, her first week she was in Seattle, and I say, hey, why don't we make a move? Then they moved to Wichita Falls, I believe it was. And they were like, Nick, you were right. Close the deal.
Is that Texas or is that Kansas?
That is actually Washington State.
Oh, there's a Wichita Falls there too.
I think so. I could be wrong.
Hey, but either way, it's a town no one wants.
Most likely I'm wrong. I suck at stuff like that. But yeah, they moved to a market starting with the W about 40 miles east. And so sometimes just brainstorming with me, I can help you be like, where is that nearest rural market? Where can you go where it's suburban? So if you also need a sounding board, you guys can totally reach out to.
Love it. Well, hey, we're here to help everybody. I hope you enjoyed this week's call. If you're going to cold call, if you're going to do that strategy, listen to the facts and the info that we just gave you. And, I got a Facebook group too. If you need additional help, head on over to Painless Flipping on Facebook. We'll help you out. And again, Nicholas Nick, thanks so much for your time, brother.
Appreciate you, dude.
Thanks, guys.